at CSM Focus LinkedIn Live. So today's topic, as a CS team, we've been always told you have to use AI, but many teams are still at that figuring out stage and don't know how to apply day to day. So today is all about how to make AI practical. And we have two use cases today. One is voice of the customer and one is renewals. So most importantly, we're joined by two experts. One is Amelia Wampler. She is a CEO founder of Limitr, and Limitr is an automation. Like, oh, Amelia will introduce a little later about what they do. And then I also have King Gawlas with me. So he will teach everybody how to love AI more. And he is a CEO and founder from Onward and Upward. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Amelia and Rich. Do a short intro. Yeah, for yourself.
Thank you so much. Excited to be joined by everyone today. Thank you. So as Emma said, my name is Rich King Gawlas. I am the founder of Onward and Upward AI. What I do is I help make AI less scary for all go-to-market teams. I help train and educate, and what I specifically love doing is actually digging into the weeds with teams to really understand their use cases and be able to provide unique bespoke training just for your team that's going to resonate with exactly what you are doing on a day-to-day basis versus the generic one-size-fits-all AI training that you find. Amelia?
Yeah, hi. So good to be joined by everyone. I'm Amelia. I'm the co-founder of Limitr, and Limitr is pricing infrastructure for AI companies. So we help AI companies monetize their AI products. And yeah, so I'm going to be showing you today like how I use AI in my customer success workflows and trying to make it as easy and approachable as possible.
Well, thank you.
Today we're going to be going over some basic terminology. So just some AI agent 101. I'm going to be going through a really quick example of how to build a voice of customer agent using Claude. And then Rich is going to go through making a renewal risk agent. And then we're going to talk a little bit at the end about future outlook of AI. So to get right into the terminology, we're just going to cover a few key points here, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. And if you already know these terms, great. This is kind of like an intro to AI if you maybe don't use it as much. So if you already know it, great. But if you don't, we're going to learn together. So an AI agent is AI that takes action for you. So it's not just a chat. So many people are familiar with using ChatGPT, which is an AI chatbot. So you can have back and forth conversations with it, but it's not taking action for you in other tools. That is where AI, like agentic workflows come in. So it uses tools to complete multi-step tasks. And it can take action on behalf of a human, or you can have human in the loop functionality. And that just means that the AI agent, you're setting up the AI agent to have settings to basically tell you or ask for permission when it is about to execute a task so that you have approval over that, and it's not taking unwanted tasks for you. So this can be really helpful if you're trying to build an app, for an example, and you don't want the agent going rogue and creating features that you may not want. So that's just something to keep in mind whenever you're working with AI agents. The next term is LLM, so large language models. Think of this as the AI brain. And this is, so examples of the LLMs are Claude Sonnet 4.5, GPT-4, and you'll notice that the providers, so the providers are OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and there are many more, but those are just a few examples. You may notice when you're using those providers that they can sometimes have different models, or they may upgrade models depending on which one you're using, or they might release a new one that has more improved functionality or new features. So there's two parts to that are important to remember, is that there's the provider and then there's the LLM model. And then MCP is the next term. This stands for Model Context Protocol. And MCP are connectors basically, that were created so that LLMs and AI providers could connect to different tools and different apps. So it connects to your apps. Tools like Notion, Asana, Slack, HubSpot, those are specific examples that I'm going to be using today, specifically Notion and Asana. And it basically allows an AI chat to become an agent. So it allows for that capability for the AI to then execute tasks for you. Now, just something to keep in mind with MCP servers is you want to check with your company's security policies whenever you connect with any of these, because whenever you configure settings, you can there are different permissions that you can allow. So just make sure that you are in line with your company's policies. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about creating a Claude voice of customer agent that then takes that voice of customer and creates product requirements for you in Asana. So just for some context, for us and for the AI, it's important that you provide AI to your provider of choice. So in this case, we're using Anthropic Claude. And so this is really, really important context that you should also be providing to Claude and say, so in this case, we're customer success teams, and we're typically dealing with feedback from a lot of different customers. It lives in different tools, and it can sometimes get lost between nodes and different teams. So feedback sometimes never becomes action. So the cost of that is that there's sometimes a slow response to customer needs, wrong features are built, and customer success managers are doing a lot of admin work. So we're going to use AI today to try and solve that problem. So we're going to create an AI agent with Claude, and how this works, just to go over before we get into the actual app, is this works by Claude being able to read through your customer notes across various tools. Today, I'm going to be using the example of it connecting with my Notion document, and it's going to read my notes that I have on my made-up customer there. It's then going to extract requirements in priority and rank features based on priority. And then it's going to create Asana tasks for me, and it's going to format them based on the instructions that I give it. And then it's going to monitor that Notion document and my Asana board in real time, and it'll make updates as needed. So hopefully the result of this is that it cuts down on your admin time and you have more accurate Asana tasks. And then, so just to give a starting point and some background information, in order for me to do this tasks, I first had to set up my MCP connectors in Claude to my apps that I want to use. So I connected it to my Notion account, and I connected it to my Asana account. And I will show you in Claude how to do that. Then whenever I connected those, I made sure to configure the permissions. In my case, I configured them to say always allow, because I wanted to give Claude permissions to execute tasks on behalf of me. If you're doing this with your company data, just make sure that you're following company policies, of course, and check with your IT team if needed. And before this, I created a document in Notion that had all of my notes about the customer that I wanted to review. And what Claude is going to do is it's going to read through the entire document. It's going to extract requirements, organize by priority, and then create Asana tasks for me. So I am going to show you the Notion document that I created. This is my Notion document with all of my customer notes. It has stakeholders, onboarding journeys, meeting notes, all of the good stuff. And then here is my prompt that I worked with Claude to actually create. So this is the cool thing about whenever you're using AI to create AI agents, is that you can actually use the chat functionality to work with the AI to create the best prompt possible. So this is a prompt that I went into Claude and I asked it, hey, this is my task that I want to do. I want to create an AI agent that is a voice of customer from all of my notes. And then I want it to create Asana tasks for me in my product board. And what it gave back to me was this really in-depth prompt with a lot of requirements. And then I basically went back and forth in Claude and I said, actually, I want to rank by priority and I want to do these things. So it made it really specific and added things that I may not have otherwise thought of. So focus on these things: customer quote, sentiment, business impact, renewal risk context, all of these things. So I'm going to copy this and then we're going to paste it into Claude. Okay, so now I'm going to share my Claude screen. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so now I am in the Claude desktop app. And like I said before, in order to do this, you need to be paying for, you need to be paying for a premium account. So I'm paying $20 a month for a Claude premium subscription. And that basically enables you to connect to different tools. And I've pre-configured and connected all of my apps that I want to use. So right here, you can see Asana, you can see Notion, and here are the configuration settings that I talked about, and I have them set to always allow. So I just want to double check that. And then in order to execute this, I have my prompts that I copy and pasted into a brand new chat, and it has all of the context and requirements for the task that I want the agent to do. And I basically told it to read through my Notion document and to take any insights and put them into Asana for me. So I'm going to enter. And it's going to think for a little bit, search through Notion. Perfect, it found the Acme Corporation document that I wanted it to access. It can see 11 requirements in the product requirements from customer feedback section. It's breaking down the requirements for me into different priorities: low, medium, high, critical. And then it's searching through my Asana project to look to where to place these tasks. Yep, and then it found my Asana project. And question before I proceed: which section should I use for each priority level? Please let me know and I'll create all the tasks with the confirmed structure. Okay, so this is a great example of the human in the loop component that I was talking about before. So Claude is asking me for permission basically to execute these tasks. So I'm going to say, which section should I use for each priority level? Yep, that looks good to me. You can go ahead and create the task. And requirements. All right, so I've given Claude permission to go ahead into my Asana account and create these tasks. And it's, as you can see, it's like thinking a little bit. So it's creating these tasks. And then it says I need to search for a create task tool. Let me create the tasks properly using the project structure. So great, this is awesome. It is giving me a preview of what this task is going to look like before it actually executes it. So then I'm not caught off guard whenever it goes into my Asana board. So, yep, that looks good to me. I'm gonna create tasks, and then I can view later, create task. And I'm just gonna go ahead and accept these. And then I'm going to view it in Asana. So let me share my screen and I'll show you my Asana board. Okay, great. So yeah, this is my Asana account and it has created these tasks for me. It's created due dates even. It's given a really detailed description. And then I can even go back in here and edit it, or I can go back into my Claude chat and edit it there, tell it what I want to change, and then it'll change it for me. So I don't even need to go into Asana if I don't want to. And then here you can see all of the tasks that I told it to execute, and it has gone ahead and created them. So that was pretty easy. It's a pretty, quick example of how you can use MCP connectors in Claude and connect them with your tools to do various tasks. And then the upside of doing this is actually that I can update notes using Claude. So if I have another meeting with that customer and maybe they have some different feedback for me, I can chat with Claude and say, I just got this feedback from this customer. Please update my Notion document, and then update the corresponding Asana task with this feedback, and it'll actually go through and adjust everything. It has the context needed to do that. So then that significantly cuts down on my work that I need to do. And then the key takeaways that I had just from doing this quick demo is that whenever you're setting up your data sources, make sure that you're making sure all of your permissions are correct and they align with your company's policies. So for me personally, I do always allow for my connectors because I can do that. I don't have any strict policies on my end. And then I check that my data that it's pulling from is up to date. So what I mean by that is the Notion document, for example, that I connected to and I told it to search from. I went through that document beforehand and made sure that the information was correct and it wasn't pulling something that was maybe wrong today. So just be mindful of that you're not pulling from like old out of date data. And then build context. So be very specific about when you're talking to Claude and you're chatting with Claude to set these things up, be very specific about who you are, your role in the company, what you're trying to accomplish, give very specific details about the task. And we talked about this before this live demo, but treating Claude as if it's an intern for you, an intern that you just hired, and it has very little context about how the company works, what your goals are, maybe what your job description is, everything. So you don't need to write a book to give it context, but just be mindful that you're giving it all of the important information so that it can complete its task the way you want it to be completed. And then you can also use Claude to help create its own context window. So by that, I mean you can chat back and forth with Claude and say, you know, this is the task I'm trying to create, or task that I'm trying to execute and create an AI agent. Is there anything I'm missing? And Claude can give you some ideas as well, and then you can iterate on that. And then lastly, just refine your prompts. Practice writing prompts. I mean, I personally, I think it takes some practice because you really need to refine your communication skills. It's much like searching on Google. I think we all had a learning curve when it came to learning how to effectively do Google searches. It's a little bit similar to that, but you just need to be more detailed. And then asking Claude to write prompts for you. I went over this, but just a quick example. One thing that I say is, I want you to create an AI agent to do XYZ. Can you create a few prompts for me to do this? And then I can go in as the human and say which one matches my needs best. And then lastly, just get creative and see what you can do when you're chatting and creating agents in Claude.
Well, we have a couple of questions from the audience. I'm going to bring them show on the stream for a little bit. The first, was it difficult to set up from a security and permission perspective when you were setting all that up?
For me personally, it was not difficult, but also keep in mind that like I'm a founder of a small startup, so I don't have to contend with a lot of the security requirements that larger companies may have to. But in terms of just selecting the actual permissions, it's very simple. Like I showed it on my screen earlier. Whenever you connect your tool, you just click connect. You go through the normal Google OAuth workflow where you just say, yep, continue, connect. And then you hit configure connector in Claude. And that's where you can see the specific permissions, and those specific permissions will be things like read document, execute tasks in this app, those types of things. So if you don't want it to be able to read certain things, then it's very simple. Then you just click the X. If you do want it to do it, then you click the check and you say, yep.
Yeah. There is a couple more questions. I feel like this is a good one for everybody to think about it. Is Sean, bring this one up. Oops. When you scale this to manage feedback from multiple sources, for example, Ocean Docs, how do you prevent requirements from one customer from bleeding into another?
I would say this ties into like the data source piece that I brought up. Whenever you're creating your data sources, so like in this case in Notion, making sure that you have like clearly defined documents for different customers, because that's what the AI is referencing, right? So you can say, you know, I have a document for feedback from Acme Corporation, and everything in that document is related to that customer. And then in a completely separate document, I have feedback from Limitr. So just making sure those things are separated, and whenever you're asking the AI to search through those documents, making it really clear that either you want to combine that feedback or you want to keep them separate.
Yeah, this is just like kind of defining where you want to grab the data source, right? This is fun. Okay, one last questions. This is about how do you update HubSpot meaningfully by using these agents. I think as well, let's talk about once we know the voice of a customer, how do you go back and update the CRM?
Okay, that's a good question. I think so. I actually have Claude connected to our HubSpot, and I have it connected to Asana, like you just saw. So the nice thing about updating these things using Claude and using different AI models is that you can kind of eliminate the like copy and pasting method of updating like your various like CRMs that you're using or like project management tools. So you can actually put in prompts into Claude that say, you know, update my Asana, my HubSpot, and my Salesforce, whatever else you're using, update these 3 tools with this updated customer information. So then you're not having to like spend so much time doing admin work like that.
Well, thank you. Rich, you want to take the next section?
Let's go for it. I'm gonna actually steal the screen really quickly from Amelia. Give me one moment, and we can dive in. Okay. And hopefully everyone can hear me still. Thumbs up. Yeah, perfect. Fabulous. All right, so using AI for renewal risk and health scoring. So much like voice of the customer, if you have great data, if you have accurate data, even if it's from multiple sources, you can take all of that data, aggregate it, and get AI to do some really, really exciting things with it. You can get it to analyze all the data. You can give it parameters for health scoring. If you haven't already started health scoring, you can start doing that now, and you can even get AI to help build out what those parameters look like if you haven't thought about them before. So the sky's the limit, truly, and there's so many different things we can do. But whenever we think about using any sort of AI, the thing that I like to teach a lot of the people that I work with is to start quite literally by breaking your tasks down into individual steps. And it may sound redundant, but the better you're able to define your tasks, as Amelia said, being able to like really give it that context of what it is you're looking for. And in some cases you're not looking for, putting in the guardrails of like, do not answer like this, or do not look at this. Those are going to help you craft out sort of the best version of your prompts, and the best versions of your automations, and even get your agents to work like clockwork. So first thing that we're going to do is connect and look at all our customer data. So think about, where does your customer data live? Is it all in one spot like PlanHat or HubSpot or Salesforce? If not, how many spaces or how many places does it live? So you have to sort of think about that and where you need to be extracting this data. For the sake of any demo that I do here, I'm going to only extract from one spot, but you can effectively use AI to extract data from multiple places all at the same time. And then lastly, what customer data is actually important to analyze? Well, you probably have a CRM that's really robust with things like names, emails, when customers signed on, ARR, things like that. You're probably not going to want your AI to look at every single data point for a task. So in the case of renewal risk, things like revenue will probably make sense, but maybe you want to look at, the last, call it maybe 1 month or 3 months of email data. Like what's the sentiment coming out of emails? Are customers kind of happy? Are they not? Usage data, so adoption, if they're using your software, for example, then that's a data point that you want to put in there. So the more data doesn't always mean better data, better outputs. It's really about sort of crafting a strategy here that's going to be surgical and allow you to look at only the relevant data and then get the best possible outputs. Next thing we want to do is analyze for potential risks. So what does risk mean to you in your organization? Have you defined what risk actually is, and what are the big red flags that you should be looking out for that point to imminent churn? And what are the activities that you and your team perform that can potentially mitigate churn, whether that's imminently or even over the course of a customer's relationship? You want to make sure that you're aware of what you can be doing even today to stop someone from churning in the next 11 months. So something that we need to be sort of keeping top of mind. Next, calculating the health score. And again, this is something that I love doing just so that at a glance, I know whether customers are looking really, really great or whether or not they're looking like they might need a little bit of love from your customer success team. PlanHat, for example, anyone who uses PlanHat already uses a really great scoring system from 1 to 10. 1 to 10 seems to be a pretty solid scoring sort of rubric. And in the case of the demo here, I'm going to use NPS, so Net Promoter Score, and that kind of algorithm. It's 1 to 10, so anyone that's a 9 or 10 is promoters, 7, 8 is passives, and then detractors is everybody else. And then generating a report. So as you find out this information, what are you going to do with it? So you have to find out what that next logical action is. Are you reporting this to your director of customer success? Are you reporting this to the product team? Are you reporting this potentially to the CRO or CCO? You need to be able to take all of that wonderful output now that you've got through AI and create something meaningful with it, create meaningful dialogue with your team in order to actually start creating, building strategic solutions for your customers. All right. So I love talking about AI now as a bit of a choose your own adventure, because what I've discovered over time as AI continues to get better and better is that there really isn't one way of doing things anymore. And it doesn't even have to be that there's right versus wrong. You can have the right outcome in probably about a dozen different ways of doing it. And so I typically break this down into sort of, easy, medium, hard. So starting with the most basic, which I think everyone is familiar with, is to upload data manually. So anyone who's used ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, you take whatever data you want to work with, ingest it directly into your chat, and start having a conversation one-to-one. You use that chat to prompt specific questions to get further insights into that data. And again, these chats can be environmental. So if you're already in Google Workspace, you probably have access to Gemini. If you're using Microsoft, you probably have access to Copilot. If you don't, then certainly you can use standalone tools like Claude, like Amelia showed, and ChatGPT. You can also prompt an integrated AI chat. So this is something that's becoming more and more accessible for companies that use any number of SaaS tools, of course. So HubSpot has Breeze, so HubSpot has its own AI chat that you can use right within the platform. Salesforce has the same thing with Einstein and Agentforce, PlanHat, Gainsight. They're all rolling out their own AI functionality that basically allows you to chat with the data that's in there, which can be really, really useful. However, the only caveat is typically you can't ingest other data into that CRM. So again, if you've got data about your customers living in multiple spots, you probably wouldn't be able to just use one standalone tool for that. You may have to use, again, like something like Claude, ChatGPT, or your environmental AI. And then the last thing is agents. So agents are incredible because they can do so many different things all in one prompt. You effectively tell it the ideal outcome that you're looking for, and it'll go and complete a series of tasks that effectively help get to that outcome. And they're exceptionally powerful. They're so much easier to create now. But the real key here is to just learn how to prompt your agent and be able to build it by putting in the context, right data, the guardrails, specific outcomes, and then that are going to be able to do your agent. And agents can be built, again, in a lot of those standalone tools like ChatGPT. I'll show you one example of that. But you can also use automation platforms, so things like Zapier, N8N, Make.com, allow you to effectively build agents. Now, they require maybe some more technical skill in some instances to get the best possible outcome, but you can effectively use these to create AI agents that will run an entire process for you from start to finish. And the last thing that I love to tell people is that inevitably paid will be stronger than free. So if you're using any free AI tools, there's nothing wrong with that. However, just know that in a lot of cases, if it's free, it's probably training on your data. So again, if you're using a lot of company data, just be really, really mindful of that. And then of course, the paid versions of these tools will usually have better functionality, will have first priority over using the strongest models. So I always recommend use the paid version. And I think everyone has, anyone who works for any organization that has structure to it, you probably should start that conversation with your IT team, or whoever controls the licensing of software. Get access to these tools. Even things like Zapier, for example, which was historically more of a marketing tool because you can create marketing automations. I see every reason why customer success should be using Zapier now, because you can create automations, you can use their AI powered tools and create these powerful workflows specifically for customer success. It's become that much more powerful now. Oh, and of course, human in the loop, the last thing. And Amelia had mentioned this too, that being the human in the loop, so human review after every step, probably a strong idea. Do not trust that AI is going to get it right on the first try. It's a bit like taming a dragon. You know that it might fire in the wrong direction. So just make sure that you're reviewing everything. And once you've got it on repeated times, you'll probably be able to start limiting the review. But make sure you get at least like a few reps in. All right, I'm going to dive into a couple demos. But so let's, for sake of argument, pretend that we all work for a company called Chernobyl, preventing meltdowns before they happen in customer success. I love using dummy data just to really illustrate what it is that we do here in customer success and with AI. But so we'll use Chernobyl as our company that we work for, and I've created some data. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share now my second screen and get us to a spot where we can take a look at all of the fun stuff. Okay. All right, hopefully everyone can see my screen. I have created, effectively, I've created a set of dummy data. So I literally used ChatGPT to help me with this, to create a set of customers. So I have 40 different customers here with a number of different names, company names, where they're located. And if I just scroll over here, what I did specifically is to dummy up some potential emails. So sample emails that these customers will have sent to me about a number of different problems that they're facing, or perhaps even praising some of the work we're doing. Thought that that'd be great data to play with. And then I put in some ARR, number of seats, things like that. So we've got a data set here to play with. All right. So I'm going to start with the sort of easy, then go to medium, then go to the harder spot in terms of building out some of these. But everyone's familiar with prompting, or at least I certainly hope by now you've tried any one of the AI prompts. But what we're going to do is I will upload our file. Give me one moment. We've got customer profiles. Here we go. All right. And much like Amelia said, the better you link your chat or your AI tool to existing sources, the better. So again, if you're using Google Workspace, there's a strong likelihood you've got a pro version of Gemini available to you. And so being able to connect it to your Google Drive, to your email, to your calendar, to things like that will help make some of these tools and processes a little more seamless. So with prompting, I can start with just tell me who's at risk. And so when I talk about prompting, it's wonderful because you can have a natural language conversation with your chatbot as it's to help analyze data. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. You should be communicating it to it the way you would to an intern, to someone that you work with, in order to be able to get to those specific outcomes. So you can use natural language, which is great. However, the better the prompt, the better the output. So better data, better output, better prompts, better output. So the second you start to really put a little bit of structure around your prompts, the likelihood of you having a much more relevant and powerful output is much, much higher here. So it has told me here, and so it answers the question, because AI is always going to try to answer the question. It's not going to say, I don't know. It's going to try its very, very best using its models to answer the question. So we've got a couple of different companies here that are risk. I haven't specifically outlined what risk is, or like what criteria it should be looking for. So it did this on its own, which I love. However, I'm just curious if maybe we add a little bit of more context. So at a very, very baseline, when it comes to structuring prompts, the big things that I try to look out for is, one, to frame it by giving it a role to act in. So in this instance, you are an expert customer success manager in tech. Once you give it that lens, it knows now not to use the entirety of the internet as its context window. It knows that it wants to look at data through the lens of an experienced customer success professional. A couple of things that are also really, really important here, and the hashtags in particular just help it in terms of like code language, but you're looking for context. So you give it as much context as possible into what it is you're trying to achieve. You give it the criteria of how you want your output to look. Do you want it to be short? Do you want it to be long? Do you want it to be in the form of a table? Do you want it to be in the form of PDF? What is it that you're looking for? Give it the criteria to answer and be able to give you the solution you're looking for. And then lastly, instructions here. And I try to keep instructions pretty simple, and you can order this any way you want. But so let's do this. I'm just going to change a couple things here. So review the data using the following, using best practices in SaaS. Sure. I look for training. All right, so let's take a look and see if answer all my questions about the linked data. We'll give it a few more minutes. And while it's doing that, I'm going to pop into ChatGPT because I'm very curious if it's going to, this is what I love. I love being able to just sometimes compare the data, compare the outputs. So I'm going to give it my prompt, and I'm going to give it access to else. I'll get them both going for a second. We'll see how they compare. Let's go back to Gemini. Okay. And so now I'm curious, actually. So high priority risk accounts, it's telling me that this company here, Pinecone Payments and Finstride, they're pretty much the highest ones. And for whatever reason, I'm not seeing that necessary. So I'm seeing Pinecone here, Finstride, high value risk. So you can already see that between the two different types of prompts, you're gonna start getting different answers or answers that maybe contradict each other. That's okay. That's where your unique expertise comes in. You know your clients best. You know your product best. So it's important to always have that in the loop review. Don't just copy this over and send it off to someone. Make sure you're reviewing. Make sure that the data is accurate, that the responses that you're getting from AI are in fact relevant to what it is you're trying to do. So I'm just curious. So it said Pinecone and Finstride. Let's see what ChatGPT came up with. Logged in. My ChatGPT instance is my biggest hype person. So, okay, who's the highest risk client? And then it's because you can see in just about every single one of these steps too how it's working. So, and sometimes it'll take a little bit longer. It usually uses, well, the models have been getting better and better each time now, so it's going to take a little longer as we go. But if you're ever curious, you can go to the top left-hand side and toggle through different models. So the highest number is going to be the biggest, the strongest reasoning model, but you can use simpler models for simpler tasks. Don't feel like you need to always come to the highest one. All right, and here it's telling me that Lakehouse Energy is my highest risk, which wasn't even in the Gemini thing. So it's not that one answer is wrong and one answer is right, or that both are wrong and both are right. This is where your expertise is critical to understand whether something's real or something's not. And of course, as you retrain your models and continue to give it feedback on what it's getting right and what it's getting wrong, that's where you're going to start to see the biggest successes too. So I digress because I can talk about that forever. But let's move on to being within a specific SaaS platform. So in this instance, I have taken one of my dummy clients. I've got some data here that we can potentially look at. And so for many of you with Breeze, you may have an access here to Assistant. And so what we can do is open this up. And so let's see here. Tell me about Amanda. Who and how happy she is. A client. All right, and so now it's giving me information that I didn't specifically need. And that's my fault because I did say, tell me about Amanda and how happy she is as a client. I probably should have just done with the second part of that. But this is where being able to refine your prompts, experiment, Amanda talk about getting creative with your prompts. This is all a learning curve for all of us. And by the end of this conversation, we have a new language model already that we're going to be able to start using. That's how fast these updates happen. All right, so it looks like we've got happiness sentiment, positive, high engagement signals, pain points. That was going to be my second question. I was going to talk specifically about pain points, but you can effectively use this to chat through your CRM. So you can use this as a tool to find out where the pain points are, which clients are not as happy, which ones you need to be worried about when it comes to renewal risk. And again, the only downside is that you are going to be chatting with data that lives directly in the platform. So in this case, HubSpot, I can't access data from really anywhere else. This happens to be connected to my email, so I'll have that data as a point, but you won't have access to everything if you do have disparate data points where your data is living right now. All right, and so last thing that I wanted to show you is Agent Builder. So I'm going to use OpenAI, so ChatGPT, as the example for this, and you'll notice that this actually looks a little bit different. So here we've got chatgpt.com as our domain. For anyone, especially with a pro subscription, You go to platform.openai.com, and this is where you can start to unlock even more powerful tools with OpenAI. The only caveat is that you typically need to have a bit more of a technical understanding. You could break things easier in that because the sandbox just happens to be that much bigger and you could do so many more things with it. So when it comes to agents have become very, very easy to build. And so you can literally just start from scratch by having these modules working together. So you'll start with your trigger and then basically walk through. It can be one agent, it could be 5 agents, it could be 80 agents. You can set up complex workflows in order to handle more complex processes within your organization. So it's such a great opportunity to do that. I do want to, what was I gonna do? Let's go back. I want to, oh, templates, there we go. And so a lot of cases, and you'll see this in Zapier in a moment too, a lot of the agent builders do come with pre-populated templates that you can also leverage and then just edit, add data, move things around. So you can go into, let's call it, let's go into like customer service, customer success. So it automatically populates an incredible version here where you can, an incredible workflow here. And so all you have to do is just edit some of the fields here. So we've got things like jailbreaking for your product, pass fail. Then you've got a classification agent here. So classify the user's intent into one of the following categories. So return item, cancel subscription, get information. So it's going to do some heavy work here. There are specific conditions that we can set up as well. So then or else, and then each one of these has its own agent. So you've got a return agent, we have a retention agent, information, all of these, but you can start to see, going back to the breaking your task down into individual steps. If you can break it down into individual steps, each one of those steps could potentially be an agent that you train on your customer data and your company's data in order to be able to complete bigger workflows and really save time and start to see success at scale. I will go into my renewal risk agent. So this is something that I built for the purposes of our presentation here today. And I know we're going to be coming up on time soon, so I'll wrap up quickly. But we got our health score agent. So I've given it all the context it needs. So helpful customer success, health score calculator, reviewing customer data that I've given it now. Here's the criteria for scoring. So we're going to use the NPS score. And then based on this data, assign a numerical health value. Then it's going to go into the risk analyzer. So from here, got helpful customer success manager assistant. So review the health scores, extract customers with a score of 1 to 7, analyze those customers and produce an analysis of their level of churn risk. So it's starting to start thinking a bit more here and then ensure to highlight the main reasons for why they might churn. And then lastly, we've got the risk report builder. So from here, much longer prompt here, but I spent some time to really think about what it is that I need this to do. So churn risk reporter is the role that it's going to play as. Context, it has to report to 3 separate people: director of customer success, director of product, and your chief revenue officer. Criteria for reporting. So I put 3 separate criteria, so one for each. Your customer success director or whoever your leadership team is likely going to need a lot of detail about the risks. The churn risk, so something to consider here, and you can give it whatever criteria or format that you're looking to, that your team typically reports on. And in this case, I want to also put in potential solutions that I can go back to the client with. Criteria for the director of product, maybe moderate amount of detail. They don't need to know all the nuts and bolts of how customers are doing, but they do specifically need to know why they're at risk. And then here, include requested features or bug fixes. So things that have popped up in conversation with customers, you can now have that be input specifically into the report for the product team. And then lastly, your CRO. So minimal detail, they really need to know things in like 3 bullet points or less. So highlight the top reasons for your top risk clients, and then here include the amount of revenue risk for each customer. So break it down by, let's call it maybe the top 5 customers and how much money that's going to effectively lose at the end of this quarter if they churn, something that they're going to be keeping an eye on. And then once we're ready to go, all right, tell me about risk at my organization. you know what, I'm going to be specific. Risk with my clients. And so while you can typically set it and forget it when it comes to these thinking processes, I do sometimes like to watch what's happening and see what it's thinking about, because that's when I can start to identify where I need to fine tune either my prompt, put in a guardrail around something, start to hone in on what could potentially be going wrong here. All right, I am going to set and forget it because I do want to show Zapier really quickly. So when you pop into Zapier, and especially with the paid accounts, and you have access to a number of different Zaps automations, which basically are like linking different tools to each other, this is how easy it is to create an agent now. So we can say, create an agent that calculates churn, oops, risk at my org based on customer data and previous email interactions. And so some of you might have heard the term vibe coding right now, which is effectively learning how to code solutions. You can effectively tell an AI agent what it is you're trying to build, and it'll just chat with it, basically create software, which is incredibly exciting. I have a friend who's basically vibe coded his way into a food app, which is super cool. But basically, you can do vibe coding for your own agents. So create an agent that analyzes churn risk, clarify a few details, customer source, email interactions, and trigger. We should be able to pop in attach file coming soon. And this is how new, just for context, this is how new some of this technology is. So I often hear people feel like they're behind in AI, and it's easy to. I promise you, you were not. We're all learning on probably the steepest learning curve ever in history. So basically, I could theoretically link it to data through that. I won't trouble you with that. Let's go into, because I did build a version of it. So, and here you can start to edit and fine tune for this specific agent based on what it is you need to do. So you can do an on-demand trigger, which means you're manually triggering it by clicking the button. You can schedule it, run the automation at specific predetermined times. Maybe if you're reporting on risk on maybe a bi-weekly meeting, you can set it for bi-weekly or quarterly, or trigger via Zaps and MCPs. So again, the more you link all of your tools together, the stronger the automations could potentially be and do incredible work in terms of extracting information about renewal risk. And so here, I know there's a lot of text here, but basically it'll say access the customer data, then extract relevant information, access second customer data, aggregate, analyze. So it's going through these different steps, and you can see that it's already linked to specific Google Sheets here. So there's always going to be some upfront work when it comes to building some of these agents, but it truly is really, really easy to build. All right, so I'm going to pop back into my agent builder here. All right, so customers with scores that are low. So these are specific people, it looks like. And then moderate. And then we've got analysis here. And so the more we go down, so it's going to give me recommendations based on what we could potentially do to mitigate the churn risk. So for customer success director, here we go. So detail that risk, potential solutions, same thing, risks, potential solutions. And then as I scroll down, so director of product. So we've got risk factors, requested features or fixes. So things like versioning in the workflows, role-based access control, data sync lag. So now we're taking the same data set and being able to extrapolate multiple reports based on the lens that you need to report it back on. All right, I've talked for a lot, so let's go back to the presentation. And we can wrap things up.
That was so great, Rich.
Wherever my presentation is. Thank you.
That's really.
I love teaching this. It's so much fun. AI is so much fun. AI, like, And I hear a lot of the like fear around AI, which I understand. AI is creating a shift for everyone at work, but it doesn't have to be nearly as scary as you think it is. Okay, so putting this into practice, so a couple things that are really top of mind, and you may remember this if you tuned into the LinkedIn Live from September of last year, but putting AI in daily practice is really how you're going to be able to build that muscle. So putting things into your Slack channel, things like best practices, learnings that you're finding, even things that don't work, let your team learn from you and your mistakes and what you've been finding. So using Slack, I think, is really powerful. Dedicating time to actually learn about AI. So even if it's an hour a week, just to like really play around with it, not on a rush, just experiment, because there's so many different things you're doing that will definitely help level up your game. Incorporating team goals, also really, really powerful. So set some efficiency metrics for you and your team, and then do team learning for yourselves, or hire someone like Onward and Upward to come in and help your team learn how to use these tools to the best of their capacity, especially because everyone has access to them now. So if you have access to them, but you're not using them, that's what an opportunity cost here for you and your team. So just something to think about. Okay, Emma, questions?
Yeah, I was like trying to follow you along on the ChatGPT agent page. Is that only available on the web page, not the ChatGPT app? Because you did show us.
I don't think, yeah, no,
fun.
not on the app. No, I've never tried on the app for what it's worth, but I would assume that this is a desktop only activity. It's a big screen activity, not a small screen activity.
Okay, yeah, I see. Yeah, I was like thinking about like how you use the hotspot, that internal kind of ask. Have you tried using Cloud Connect to Hotspot and use Cloud to ask the question? I was kind of curious how that worked.
I haven't yet,
Yeah.
but it's entirely possible. Yes, so you can once you connect apps, then you start to see some really, really great functionality available to you. You can have the same like conversations basically about that data. But again, good data, good strong connections, and having access to them, I think, is really, really powerful, because for a lot of these, at least for me, I don't have paid subscriptions to everything, so I can't access everything maybe the way I want to. But yeah, there's so many different ways you can do it.
Yeah, a lot of these tools don't like. One thing I noticed when setting this up is like I don't pay for the upgraded version of Notion, so like I have credits, AI credits in Notion that often I like reach the limit of, because they don't give you very much in like the lower tier. But the way around that is you can connect Claude and basically like connect your Claude to your Notion and be able to like do the same thing through MCP. So that's like the cool thing, where like it depends on where you really want to work. So like if you spend a lot of time in HubSpot, you can certainly just use like their AI tools that they have in HubSpot. But if you work in like a variety of different tools, the advantage of using Claude and using MCP to connect to all of your different tools is that you can like spend more time in Claude interacting with many different tools. So it like cuts down on like your switching time between tools.
Well, in the chat, I asked the audience what other use case they've been using to build. One was interesting, using to scrape for web scraping. Another one is for job posting and a persona, setting up persona to do interviews and stuff. That's kind of interesting to do as well. Yeah. Well, wait for anyone else have any questions? Yes? No? Maybe so? Okay.
Did you answer the question from Ella? There was one beyond VOC and renewals. Is that?
Oh, yes. Question for that. What is the next beyond voice of customer renewals? What other CS motion would you use to optimize through AI?
I think, Rich, you covered a lot of those other use cases in your agent builder.
Well, and for the ones who are totally not scared of having AI clone you, you can use something like HeyGen to like literally clone your image and your body and like do tutorial videos, personalized outreach to your client. So like you can use AI to take over a lot of maybe the menial stuff on your desk, which allows you to be so much more strategic.
Amelia, do you have one you can think
of? Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Rich. I mean, the sky's the limit, right? Like you can, and like I said, whenever I was demoing, like just get creative. I would say like if there's a task where you're like, wow, I really hate having to manually do this, like you could probably automate it with AI. And that's how like you just begin to experiment with building agents.
Yeah, Sean also shared something. Yeah, so Perplexity Commons browser is pretty strong to automate as well. These agentic browsers showing up, for example, Atlas from ChatGPT, right? I think Claude has one now, and Perplexity Comet.
They're going for the throne. We could see Google get unseated one day. Like the times are changing.
All right, here's a hot take. If you have $1 million, what's your bet for the next AI tool as you're building the agents?
I just saw that there's like an AI agent social media platform that only lets AI agents post and chat with each other. I saw that came up over the weekend. So if that was my $1 million bet, I would say maybe that's the next big thing.
I don't even know an answer to that.
Well, who's your favorite intern so far? Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, the second AI can like fold laundry, for example, because I think that's where everyone's like, oh, I don't want it to take over my job. I want it to fold my laundry and cook for me. So once we have the big autonomous robots doing all that for us, that'll be great.
Exactly. I think we're out over time, so I don't want to keep everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. If you have any questions, reach out to Amelia and Rich by LinkedIn, right? And yeah, thank you. Yes, and I'll share their LinkedIn in the chat as well. Thank you again. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.